It's been almost 2 weeks since the election, and Trump has picked nearly 30 people to work in his administration so far. None of them are black. After all the ass-kissing by black Trump sycophants Tim Scott and Byron Donalds, they got passed over for the top positions in government. Tim Scott literally got on his knees in the sand to get married to a woman for the first time in his life at nearly 60 years old and professed his undying affection for Donald Trump.
I just love you.
And he still didn't get a job. Byron Donalds let a white man pat him on the head, extolled the virtues of Jim Crow segregation, and traveled across the country singing Trump's praises. And he still didn't get a job. In fact, for the top 5 positions in government, Trump's picks are all white men.
So you heard from Keith Boykin, Democrat, constant critic of not just Donald Trump, but Republicans in general. His comments about Tim Scott, for obvious reasons, he seems to be mocking the fact that a 60-year-old man got married at 60 years old, for obvious reasons. But the point that he's making, and he mentioned Byron Donalds as well, and the point that he's making, and many people have been talking about it, there was a Black Enterprise article that just came out, this whole idea of Trump's black cabinet appointments. And they mainly focus on Tim Scott and Byron Donalds. Now, this is, let's be honest, and, no cap. These are conversations that black Republicans are having. I've had those conversations. We've had those conversations about we would like to see more representation of us within Trump's cabinet. And it's not isolated to a Tim Scott or a Byron Donalds, because they're literally members of Congress. And that's something that people seem to be missing about this. They already have jobs. Byron Donalds, they're assumptions that he may be running for governor replace Ron DeSantis. Tim Scott is now, and I believe, the first black chair of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, meaning in charge of making sure fundraising, dealing with candidates. It is a huge position. That's what they're going to be doing. So the only people that they talk about are those two. But yes, black Republicans have been saying, well, damn, what about us? And I've jokingly even said that, well, they're probably going to give the HUD job to the black person, because it is in DC politics. You've been in DC, inside the Beltway for a while. It is a joke among black people that the minority positions are filled at HUD and Department of Labor. Bill Clinton with Alexis Herman. Think of Tom Perez, one of the Castro brothers, Elaine Chao, Pete, so all of these, that kind of stuff happens. So yes, straight out the gate, there are conversations that black Republicans have about we would like to see more of us in different positions. But where the Black Enterprise article gets it wrong is that there's frustration. And I don't think that there's any frustration. Now, would I like to see more people who look like me represented? Well, sure. I'm the person who, if not being the president, elect at this point, I'm the person who wanted Tim Scott to be Donald Trump's vice president. And it had less to do with him, despite him being from the very same state that, as far as all of my research goes, is where my paternal ancestor was boarded onto a ship before they headed down to, I think that was either Georgia or Alabama. Charleston, my ancestors, those ships, the Metamora slave ship. So there was a more of kind of like that kind of, the connection was deeper to a Tim Scott as a candidate more than just race. So yeah, I wanted that. But we're not frustrated though, because we realize that a lot of what we're talking about is symbolism. And what is symbolism? It's something that makes us feel good. Symbolism. Let's talk about symbolism. Most people don't, and I try not to get too wonky because I am all of this stuff that I just remember. But in 2016, Barack Obama came out with a progress report. It is, and what was it called? The Progress African American Community during the Obama administration. And there are a number of things that they mention. And then you talk about the first key accomplishments. They talk about the labor market, income, and poverty. As far as no accomplishments, the unemployment rate for African Americans peaked at 16.8%. It went down. The real median income of black households increased by 4.1% between 2014 and 15. President Obama enacted permanent expansions of the earned income tax credit. All of these type of things. It talks about the health disparities. It talks about teen pregnancy rates going down. It talks about things with education, obviously HBCUs. All of these things, though, and the reason that I mention these is that this is where the symbolism meets the substance. So the symbolism of having a black president is one thing. But what do black people get specifically from Barack Obama? Nothing that I named in that list is specific to black people at all. So what did that get us? And this is a report on what he felt progress that black people made under his administration. None of those, even during this campaign. Earlier this year, Charlemagne the God was criticizing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, talking about they don't talk enough about what they're doing for black people. He was criticized for it. And then the Biden administration came out with a list. They started talking about substantive things that under his administration, about $1.5 billion went to black business or entrepreneurs during the Biden administration. In that same report, $3 billion went to Hispanic businesses at the same time. Again, nothing specific to black people, and it's a benefit for sure. So this issue of symbolism versus substance, no, black Republicans are not frustrated that we don't have the symbolism. We would like to see it, absolutely, but we're not frustrated by it. And you have a lot of these people who are saying, well, what about black people? What does it mean? You want black people to do what? So you could mock them? Because I remember what happened when Tim Scott was out front with Donald Trump's tax and job cut. I remember y'all talked about him then. I remember when it came to the First Step Act, y'all called him a token then. I also remember that when they were going through police reform, this was around the time that Tim Scott made the statement. No, actually, it wasn't around that time. But when they were doing the police reform bill, you had people like Dick Durbin insinuating that Tim Scott came out with this token legislation. People don't even realize. I think Tim Scott got every single Republican senator to sign on to that bill, the Justice Act. I think he got every single one. It went nowhere because Democrats decided to filibuster. Now that is substance. That's not because you had a black senator in the Republican caucus that they came up to with that bill. It gave him a perspective for sure, but they came out with a bill, overlapped with the Democrats' bill, George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, by 85%. Democrats still said no. Kamala Harris still said no. Joe Biden still said no. Everybody said no. That is what substance can give you. So while we may like to see more black appointments, it doesn't mean anything from a substantive perspective. I've been talking about this for years, though. Back in 2019, I think, was that 2000? That may have even been 2020. There was an article that I wrote in the Washington Examiner. It's kind of ironic if you think about where the party is now. What is it? The Supreme Court of the United States. Is there no room for black female justices? Now, this gets me to another point. Now, this was around the time that Donald Trump said that he would appoint a woman to replace the late Ruth Gator, Justice Ginsburg. Notice I said Donald Trump said that he would appoint a woman to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now, that sounds like DEI to me. I'm just saying, that just sounds like DEI to me. And I've had this conversation with a number of people, and they don't think that it is, though. You have somebody saying, for instance, Joe Biden saying that he would choose Ketanji Brown or a black woman as VP. You have a president of the United States saying that he would choose a woman to replace another woman. You know, that's kind of DEI-ish. It kind of sounds that way to me. But I wrote this article in the Washington Examiner, and the point that I made in the article is that I would have liked to have seen Donald Trump appoint a black person or a black woman to the Supreme Court, not Amy Coney Barrett, a black woman. The problem, though, is that there's the talent pool is very small on our side. Then, and I'm looking for the article, it is, so black women are 11 point, this is 2000, what year is this? 2020. So this is 2020. So the numbers would be different now. Black women are 11.4% of the U.S. population, but less than 3% of appointments made to the circuit courts. Now, the circuit court is basically the launch pad to the Supreme Court. Most justices come from the circuit court, and then they just go right to the Supreme Court. So that's why that's significant. So if you have black women being less than 3% of the circuit court appointments, then you have an even smaller pool of conservative black women within that 3%. So there is a talent pool problem, and there's a whole, in another video, I could talk about how do we address that. But something else, though, that this symbolism doesn't get you. I live in Washington, D.C. My local school that I just walked past earlier today, the latest report is that the elementary school, that is, 1.7% of the students met or exceeded expectations in math. 1.7. Across the bridge, about a 10-minute drive away, at another school where the difference in median household income is about, I think, $60,000. So I think it's about $120,000 versus $60,000. A 90% black neighborhood versus a 44%. That school, meaning on Capitol Hill, what's that number? I think that is about 44 or 45%. I'm going to look that number up. But that is we're talking about an almost 40-point difference in scores when it comes to those who meet or exceed expectations in math. That has nothing to do with symbolism, because we got symbolism on lock. Our mayor is black. She's going on her third term. And notice I said her. So it is a black woman. So she's probably the only black woman in the entire country to win a third term for sure. And who knows when, if it's ever happened. Well, maybe it's happened. I don't know if it's happened at all. But our city council, we got enough black people on the city council. Our city council member for this ward is black. We are very, very diverse throughout this city. Republicans have no leadership positions within this city. And 1.7% of the students met or exceeded expectations in math. Symbolism doesn't get you results. That's the whole point. So you can mock Donald Trump and whoever these anonymous people are in this black enterprise who didn't want to out themselves for fear of retribution. What were they going to do? Not invite you to an event? What were these black Republicans gonna do if you came out and said, I'm frustrated that Donald Trump didn't put more black people in the cabinet? Okay, well, that's your opinion. What are they gonna do? They're gonna do what? They're gonna put you in jail? You're gonna be an outcast? Is that what you're concerned about? And this other person that Black Enterprise cited, this Southern black conservative. Okay, well, I'm a Southern black conservative. I live in Washington, D.C., but I'm a Southern black conservative. But what does that mean? So they couldn't put anybody on the record. Everybody was scared. So Donald Trump, Corleone himself, got everybody scared, and the black Republicans around him got everybody scared to say anything. They are shaking in the boots over this idea that Donald Trump. Look, I'll say this, and I'll end with this. Yes, for me, I don't care about anybody else. For me, I would absolutely like to see more representation within the Republican Party. I also understand representation doesn't produce results. We got a long way to go. They're going to have a problem with every single thing that Donald Trump does. Even if he had appointed black people, they're still going to have a problem with it. But y'all making a mountain out of a molehill when at the end of the day, you don't care at all. You don't care if there's any representation in the Republican Party. You don't care about the Republican Party. This is an opportunity for you to say, look, I just think y'all mad. Y'all mad that Kamala, as Donald Trump would say, Donald Trump would say, y'all mad she lost. When you are able to tell me how Republican policies are responsible for only 1.7% of students at a school that is very likely 99.9% black in a city run by Democrats, when you are able to tell me what does racism or Republicans or Donald Trump or white supremacy have to do with that, then we can have a discussion. But until then, this is today's view from the other side. And as always, I'll be black next time.